The Isaiah Factor Uncensored starts right now.
And welcome to The Factor Uncensored. Thank you for joining us tonight. Now, tonight we begin with these words from the Houston Defender. Gun violence is tearing through Houston's black communities with devastating impact, claiming young lives, shattering families, and leaving neighborhoods in a state of collective trauma. But now, in addition to the grief, there's another, more haunting consequence: numbness. From 3rd Ward to Missouri City, families are mourning sons, nephews, and classmates lost to bullets. The pain is sharp, but so is a growing sense that, for many, this crisis has become commonplace. Those are the words of Defender journalist and author Rashonda Tate, who joins us tonight here on The Factor Uncensored to take a look at the numbness we have to the murders here in Houston, especially involving black males, along with Andy Kahn of Crime Stoppers of Houston, Marnita Hinton, the mother of Christopher Hinton, who was murdered 4 years ago, and Captain James Hayes, Master Precinct Officer and Precinct 7 Training Commander. Glad to have you all on The Factor Uncensored tonight. Rashonda, what made you approach this issue? And by the way, excellent article. It gets at the heart of the matter.
Thank you, thank you. So I was coming up on the 1-year anniversary of a mother, a former Fort Bend County School District board member whose son died from gun violence a year ago. And it just brought home to me this growing problem that we just kind of, everybody is like, oh, another black man shot. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's purposeful that we're saying, okay, we're not going to pay attention to this. I think it's a way that we try and cope. Mm-hmm. They don't think anything's going to change, so we become desensitized to it. And I really wanted to shed light on that.
And one of the things we see, Rashonda, with the invention of social media, we see murders all the time. Just recently, a law enforcement officer sent me a video of some kids, young black males, running from trying to protect themselves from a shootout at an after-hours spot. And they were laughing at it. Yeah. They weren't afraid, they were laughing at it. And that's that protection you're talking about.
It is, and one of the things we're seeing now, it's a different era. What's happening is these kids will go on and share their location with someone that they're arguing with, saying, you know, oh, I roll up, and people are rolling up. And that gunfire is claiming lives every day, and people are just like, oh, well, another day in Houston.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, Ms. Hinton, you lost your son to violence here in the city of Houston almost 4 years ago. How difficult has it been for you to cope with this?
Oh, man, Isaiah, it's been a nightmare. I can't sleep. I can't work. I can't do anything because my mind constantly on the day that I saw my son, the people in the autopsy picking him up, putting him in the body bag. My mind is constantly on that. And I'm like, why? How? That's my child. Who did this? What? Why? You know, and it's devastating.
Do you feel like you're alone and that enough people, and do you feel like enough people truly don't care to figure out who took your child's life?
Yes, yes. Because I reach out to the detective, they say, act like they care, but I don't get called back. I reach out to just about everyone. Cornell X, just reaching out, asking people to please help me, help me. You know, I pass out flyers, constantly passing out flyers, constantly buying and passing, but I don't know what else to do. You know, whoever's out there who murdered my child, I feel that they're still out there. They're tearing down his grievement cross. I'm constantly putting it back up there. I'm constantly, you know, just trying to do what I can do to let people know that, hey, my son is murdered. Please help.
And Andy, this is the type of story you have to deal with also every day as victims advocate at Crime Stoppers.
Yeah, I mean, I've been serving on the board of Parents of Murdered Children and Surviving Family Members of Homicide for over 30 years. And as we like to say, and not really like to say, but it's the only organization in this country in which someone else writes out your membership for you. Nobody has to be part of this group. Marnita's part of this group as well. But going back on what you were talking about earlier, Isaiah, and what you wrote about Rashonda, the numbness. Crime, murder is a form of entertainment. And right now, it's booming. And all you see now on TV shows and streaming is crime, crime, murder, murder, murder. So yes, we become numb to these things, and it happens every day. I remember when Teresa said—
Let me stop you there. We're going to come back in
right.
just a moment and finish this conversation. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after the break. And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. Houston saw more than 400 homicides in 2023. More than 70% of those victims were black, despite black residents making up about 22% of the population here in the city. With numbers like these, are we turning out the painful reality, or tuning it out rather? I guess they're back for the conversation. And Andy, you said that this has become entertainment to us.
Yeah, and one of the things I don't see is outrage. I don't see it. It's a very selective outrage. Very few murders reach that level. And so I would always post up, where is the outrage? Why aren't we talking about this? You had a 9-year-old girl that was murdered, black girl murdered. Where's the outrage? Where's the community out? You know, we have to, and this is why these conversations are good, because we have to admit we do have a problem. Mm-hmm. There is a problem, and you and I have talked about this. In my years, I've never seen more young, and particularly young black males, that have A, been murdered, or B, have committed the murders. That's reality, and we got to face the reality, and I think it's time that we do have some sort of town hall, come to Jesus meeting.
All right, Captain, your thoughts about the numbness that we're seeing, the role that entertainment and social media may play in this, and you're on the front lines. Your thoughts about it?
So as far as the numbness is concerned, it just kind of depends on how you look at it. So this young lady has experienced a loss in her family with her son. She's not numb to it. She's feeling those same feelings all day long.
An open wound.
An open wound. The more she tries to heal from it, she can't heal from it because of what she's been experiencing in her own life. So when I think in terms of the suspect is numb to this, because this may be a behavior that they have partaken in many times, who knows? And so when you look at the suspect versus the family, it's kind of hard to pinpoint why.
Rashonda, let's bring you back in. You told us a situation when you were a journalist here at Fox 26 and you were out on a murder scene. Pick it up from there.
I was on a murder scene, and myself and several other reporters from other stations, we were just catching up as we waited on the medical examiner. So someone said something funny, and we were laughing and just having a conversation, and the mother of the victim came over and lit into us, rightfully so. Mm-hmm. And I think that just hammered home for me in that moment that we're at work, and so we've become desensitized because we see this all the time. And so we really have to, as a people, have to make a cognizant effort to know that this situation is bad and not become desensitized to it. I do think you should probably talk to Howard Henderson, because he talks about at the Center for Justice, at Criminal Justice at TSU, he talks about the why of this. And I talked about him in the story. And he says that music is a big part of why these young black men see no problem with the gun violence, because our generation knew that it was just all lyrics.
Yeah.
This generation does not, and he has actual facts to back that up.
All right, and we'll continue talking about that in just a moment. We're not done with this conversation just yet here on The Factor Uncensored. We'll be back with more. Stay with us. And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. We hear about gun violence almost daily, but when it comes to black men, there appears to be less concern. Our guests are back for the discussion here on The Factor Uncensored. Ms. Hinton, let's get to you really quick. When you think about or searching for a cause as to why your son may have been murdered, and you see so many senseless murders going on in the black community with black men falling, do you try and figure out a reason why? Do you consider that? Is that part of your thought process, or are you still dealing with your own trauma?
I'm dealing with my trauma, And also I'm dealing with why my son. I know it wasn't drugs. I know it was a robbery because my son, all he did was work. He didn't have no children. He just worked to buy what he wanted. So I know it was a robbery, but I'm concerned about the vicious person, ruthless person who murdered my child. Just like this man said, they just didn't care. I mean, the person who came up and shot my son in the back of his head, he had opportunity to go and not murder my son. He had multiple opportunities, but yet he rode around a couple of times before he came back up on feet. And he shot my son in the head and robbed him.
You know, the proliferation of guns, the easy access to firearms that wasn't readily available years ago. I mean, when we were growing up, if we got into arguments, you know, we would knock each other around, whatever, wrestle. Nowadays, you get in an argument, you pick up a gun and you shoot somebody. Look at the pool parties. Look what happened at North Shore High School, Jerron Coles, young football, rising star. We still haven't solved that murder. So we have to admit there's a problem. Once we admit there's a problem, then we can start taking proactive measures.
Rochelle, I think you mentioned in your report that the gun buyback program was an effort, took, I think, more than 4,000 guns off the streets, but the problem still persists. And where these young people are getting guns, that's an interesting point you pointed out in your article.
Yes, I mean, and so you take 4,000 off the streets and then someone else brings in 5,000. And so it is an ongoing process. Now, the city is doing, they have a lot of efforts. They have the RISE program. They have the gun buyback program. But it's an uphill battle, especially when you have young people who don't value lives the way we would like to see them do that.
And you also pointed out in your article where a young person would get a gun from another young person, another young relative.
A relative. Based on what they found, Howard Henderson, at TSU, when they did this study, they interviewed young black men on why they were driven to gun violence. And many of them got the guns from an older relative, an uncle, a cousin, and not like a grandfather, but that uncle or cousin would give them the gun because they needed to protect themselves. I interviewed young men who said that's why they carry the guns, because they want to get before they get got. And so that is the mentality that we see a lot.
It's like a wild, wild west, and that's the reality.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to try and talk solutions, any solutions that any of our panelists could come up with tonight here on The Factor. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back after this break. And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. We're continuing our discussion about the public and if they care if black men are murdered here in the city of Houston. Journalist Rashonda Tate wrote about how we may be becoming numb to it as a community. She's back with our guest here on The Factor tonight. Captain, let's bring you into the conversation when we talk about the gun violence and the gun buyback programs. Has gun legislation at all helped, or will it have an impact if we get more aggressive with the type of legislation?
So that's a really open-ended question, but to answer your question about solutions, as I'm sitting back thinking about it, I'm thinking about the family dynamic in the community. Back a long time ago when kids were outside running around playing, the community watched after the kids. Didn't matter what age, what ethnicity, what group, whatever. And so a lot of times I look at the dynamics of the family, the neighborhood, and the togetherness. That's all encompassing. That's what it should really be about. It should be about the families in the neighborhood looking after one another. And not only that, providing resources to that community in order to teach parents how to be parents. And that's a lot of the problem in and of itself. We have a younger generation that may not know how to cope with how to deal with arguments or things to that nature. And so with that, we need to provide those services, be mentors, wrap our arms around the community, and the gun legislation piece will take care of itself. Because at the end of the day, the voters are driving what's going on in our city councils, in the White House, state capitol, what have you.
Rashonda, in your reporting, one of the things you brought up and one of your experts said, he mentioned having resources in the community. And your expert said, when there are no resources, we get what we have now, murder.
Right. And one of the things we have to do, and honestly, Isaiah, sitting here, I'm coming to some realizations, because numbness is part of a survival instinct. That's one of the, what one of the experts I interviewed said. And as you know, my father was shot 7 times in the head, murdered.
That.
We still don't know who did it last October. And one of the ways that I exist through that grief is I just keep busy. I don't deal with it. They haven't caught him. And so I don't ever deal with it. And so Andy was telling me about a program that they have at Crime Stoppers. So I'm going to make a point to make sure I go there. And the victims have to speak out. And the victims have to not become numb, saying that, you know, this murder has happened and I'm not going to do anything about it. Just wait for them to figure out who killed my loved one. We have to be proactive as well and vocal.
Andy, as far as solutions, what's on your mind? What do you think could help, could work?
I'm going to tell you something, and this is from Crime Stoppers. I would like to basically enact what we call an unsolved homicide day. And I will take every single Crime Stoppers reward flyer, and I will put every single black male that's been murdered, whose cases are unsolved, and we'll plaster them all over the boards, and we'll do a public media or whatever blitz on that and ask for the public's help in getting these cases solved. That's for the immediate future, but the reality is I think we all need to have a come to Jesus meeting, because this problem is not going to go away.
All right, and Captain, before you go, anything else you want to add as someone who's on the front lines out there at Precinct 7?
I guess the biggest thing that I could say to the public would be, if you see something, say something. Yeah. If you notice some strange behaviors with your kids, with your family members, whoever, say something. If you have to get the authorities involved, say something. Be an encompassing community that's going to love and treat everybody equitably and fairly.
All right.
Yeah, come on, let's be real. Somebody knows who murdered Marnita's son. Yeah. Someone out there.
Yes.
So step up to the plate, give her the answer she needs.
All right, and Marnita, thank you for joining us here on The Factor, and we wish you the best.
You're welcome.
All right.